Hi, my sweet strangelings. Welcome to Mystic Mondays. And today I have a very special guest, my husband, Karl. We both do psychic development groups here in the Los Angeles County, and I've had people ask me questions about Karl, so I figured that I would do this episode to ask him a couple of questions on how he got into this community. So let's get on with today's episode. Hey, my sweet strangelings, welcome to Mystic Mondays. And today I have a special episode. I have my husband here. We are
Hi, everyone.
We are in our living room. Okay, anyway, so we wanted to talk about our psychic development circle. We've completed a year now. Actually, I'm really curious. When did you start your psychic development?
Oh my, it's been a while. So I would say I started it was around 2012. I've always believed that I've had some unique senses throughout my life. It's just I like everyone else, I just couldn't understand what they were, how I would connect with them. But when I started going to the psychic development classes in Denver, Colorado, that's when I started to learn how to harness them as well as use them for what I do today.
Actually, let's rewind a little bit. So, we did the introduction, but I kind of want to go a little bit deeper into this because I don't think everyone knows who's been listening. So, Karl is my husband. He's also a psychic medium, or you consider yourself a psychic medium?
I do.
Yeah, you consider yourself a psychic medium. So we're both psychic mediums, and we both met in a psychic development circle in Denver, Colorado, in 2014. However, it turns out that we both were attending these psychic development circles, and maybe we just didn't really see each other in passing, which is fair. So I guess that leads to the question of when did you start the psychic development? But you already answered that. So the other follow-up question is, how did you find out about the psychic development? Because I found out in a very interesting way.
So I, living in Denver, I was trying to find places that had like-minded interests. And when I went on a website called meetup.com, I just searched a bunch of interests I had in mind. And then it turns out that there was something for psychic development that I stumbled upon. And I was like, oh, let's check that out. Let's see what it does for me.
So mine was different. So I had a corgi, Jackson. That was my first corgi ever. So when I moved to Denver, I was going to the dog park, and I remember that someone at the time was like, "Oh my God, did you know that there are corgi meetups?" And I was like, I had no idea. I feel too, I don't know if you ever heard of any dog meetups prior.
No.
Yeah, I don't think.
I mean, with the exception of CorgiCon and a bunch of CorgiCon, if those who don't know, is an event where 1,500 corgi owners come and
Go to the beach.
But
Denver doesn't have a beach, so but they had local dog park meetups. So someone told me that there was a corgi meetup, and so they're like, it's like a meetup or something, and I took it literally because it is called a meetup. So I was like, weird. So I went online and I actually stumbled upon, I guess they used to do these MySpace for corgis. I don't remember the website anymore.
MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace or Facebook for corgis. And I don't remember the name of it. It's probably not even an active thing anymore. But I remember I was trying to set up Jackson's profile page. And before I could do that, I was scrolling through other people's profiles of their corgis. Because literally it was a profile and a bio or something like that. And I clicked into one of these people's profile, and it took me to meetup.com. So I was like, oh my God, they actually meant meetup.com. And so that's how I found out about Meetup. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I saw the corgi meetup, and then I saw what else was on there, and I realized that meetup was more than just a dog thing. It had hiking, yoga, meditation,
book clubs, board games. If you're a techie person, photographers, they had interests for almost any given
literally
subject.
anything. So then from there, I think it was 2000, because again, I think I might have joined in 2012. 2012 sounds about right, when I was searching for Jackson's thing. And then I think I wasn't taking it seriously until maybe about a year in living in Colorado. I was like, you know what? I'm going to revisit this website. And then that's when I saw that there was psychic stuff. I'm like, that's so interesting because I think 2012 was around the time that I was talking to Percy and Kathy, and then later I'm like, I want something more. I found the meetup, but I didn't I signed up, but I wouldn't go for like another couple 6 months or maybe a year, I would say, or I didn't take it as seriously.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I was asking for you. Like, how did you stumble upon it? Like,
So in Colorado, there was, I think the first thing that I was more interested in was the hiking aspect, because living in Alaska, I did a lot of hikes and was on the cross country teams out there, and I was always out in the wilderness, so I wanted to get in tune with it, and it was kind of almost similar to yours, where I just stumbled upon it, and back then it was like, yeah, I'm very interested in this, but I'm not really sure how to really like,
dip your toes in.
exactly. And I had this weird like experience around that same time when I was on one of the mountains with like some lightning encounters, and after that kind of was like coincidentally I started to take it a little bit more seriously. But my major drawback back then is I had a job back then that had an untraditional schedule. So like the time frames that they would meet, it was like always in conflict. But the times where I met or went, excuse me, was just for me. I look back, it's like life changing.
So that brings a really interesting question then. So you brought up hiking. You also mentioned you brushed past it. And I think people would be very interested to hear your near-death experiences with hiking.
Well,
But before I
yeah.
finish that thought, the reason why I point that out is because there are so many people that feel like near-death experience go hand in hand with spirituality, mediumship, and all of that. So can you like kind of briefly go into that?
So for the record, I this is the first time I've ever shared this story with anyone in this sort of space. So and for those who do know me personally, they know that this experience left me with a phobia of thunder and lightning. But what I failed to look at from a different angle was essentially what really came out of the experience. So I remember I was wanting to go to this hike. It was going to take me to this mountain that was over 14,000 feet. And that's a term, 14er, that is commonly used in Colorado. Anyway, I was a rookie back then. I didn't quite understand like the laws of the land when it comes to like handling 14ers, when you should ascend, when you should go, when you should hike, because in Colorado, if you do not reach the summit and descend before noon, you're very, very likely to run into lightning. And because the weather, as we all remember, is in Colorado super bipolar. But anyway, long story short is I went to this mountain. I thought I would make the most of it. I hiked up this thing, and about 150 feet away from the summit, that's when the weather changed drastically. Um, it started to rain, and then hail the size of golf balls, from what I remember, was just following down. And I just didn't think. I was running down this mountain as fast as I possibly could. And it was wet and slippery, and I remember falling. And thank God for my Mount Marathon experience, because I learned how to fall while running down a mountain.
Okay, but tell the audience what Mount Marathon is
It's the
too.
second oldest foot race in America, where you run up a mountain. It's about 3 miles long, which its difficulty is equivalent to an actual marathon.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so I did that for 10 plus years with my father. And in that experience, I learned how to fall safely down a mountain so I don't hit my head and get severely injured. But this one moment when I fell, I looked up and I saw this white light, and it was a lightning bolt coming straight for me. And this is the part where I felt like I had my life flash before my eyes. And I thought this was it. I thought I was going to die. I thought this was my last moments. And it was so weird in that moment. Time just slowed down. When I saw the lightning bolt coming at me, everything in my peripheral vision vanished. I know we're familiar with the color white, but this color that I remember seeing from this lightning bolt was unlike anything I've ever seen before. And it's just everything vanished. And then when the moment I thought I was going to die and see my life flash before my eyes was the exact moment I realized, oh, wow, it hit the spot I was just at 5 minutes earlier. and it took me a long time to kind of connect the dots.
So wait a
And
minute. Sorry. Let's pause a second. So you had this experience. What year was this?
2012.
As well. So you were, how old were you?
I must have been
What is time?
26.
26. Okay. So at 26, you had your near death experience, and you said you shortly started to feel like heightened senses.
Yeah. And
But in what way? Like, would you notice it at work? How would you notice it?
I started to the way things I would start to like see things that I would not normally would see.
Were you seeing shadows? What were you seeing?
Um it it's kind of one of those like Hollywood movie scenes that when you would see something at the tail end of it, like for example, I remember when um I had a pet pass away, and in the corner of my eye, I would see like their tail like walking past like a wall sort of thing. It was kind of like stuff like that. After this experience, I started to go to the psychic circles, and then I would see someone's face morph. If I would walk in the room, and if it, let's just say if it was haunted, back before that experience, I never really was in tune to that. But then when I would walk into those spaces, I would feel something off about the room.
But what would be the timeline between after your near that mountain experience and near death experience and the psychic circle? What was the timeline?
I think the timeline was, I think it was just like a few months after, like about, I'd say maybe 3 to 6 months later, I started doing the classes.
So for like about 3 to 6 months, give or take, you were feeling very heightened senses. Like you go into a room, or you talk to people and you would feel like maybe you were getting some downloads and stuff.
Yes, I would, that would probably be the best way to say it.
Well, you went to the psychic circle. What was your first class like?
So my first class, it was a crowded room. There was about 20 people in there. And that's where I met my mentor, or our mentor, I should say. Um, and I received 16 different readings from everyone in that room that day. And those readings consisted of like spirit was welcoming to the space for the first time, what my future endeavors would entail. And I think someone even actually said that, hey, you actually have this gift yourself, and you're kind of in your early stages, so to speak, and you're actually going to be really effective with it if you keep practicing. And, a lot of this, at the time I was kind of like a sponge where I was just taking it in, because I was still, believe it or not, thinking like, oh, this is probably just a one-time thing. I'm not going to keep doing it. But then after that experience, I was trying to attend all those classes as much as I could.
So, all right. So you did a psychic circles, and I remember when I met you, and I saw your room, you had like the calendar of all the mountains that you hiked and stuff like that. So, I remember that you had a spoon that was bent.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
asked you about that because I've never done that. Okay. So
Oh,
I'm
the
kind of
spoon
jealous that you got
bending.
to do that. I've never done that.
So that spoon was called Excalibur. No one was able to bend it. And
Okay. Okay. Okay, what's the timeline between your first one and the spoon bending?
so the spoon bending, I couldn't tell you when exactly that occurred, but I think that might have been somewhere between 2012 to 2014.
I met you of officially March of 2014.
So it had been in 2013 if
Yeah.
that's the case. So we did a class that day, or that time. The class was spoon bending, and I was very eager to like attend that, because when you when you watch the movies, and people are like bending spoons with their minds and stuff like
Sure.
that. All Hollywood saturated, of course, but in that class it was very unique. We used the energies of our intuition to help bend the actual spoons. And I
Uh-huh.
remember I started off with a spoon that wasn't as thick as that one, and I was, because I had like no idea I was able to do this. But when I did, my confidence went up. And then when that particular spoon that you saw, the at least in my opinion, the top psychics, mediums in the room, for whatever reason, were not able to bend it. And then I, thought,
What are the top psychics, love? Were there top psychics in our circle?
well, maybe the more experienced ones, the ones that were
Okay.
doing it for
Because
a
I was like,
very
what are you
long
talking
time.
about?
The ones that were doing it for a very, very long time.
Okay.
And I saw that this spoon was not bendable. So when, my stubborn mindset was like, you know what, I'm up for the challenge, even though this is my first time.
Well, can you explain in a little bit more like step by step, like what do you have to do to spoon bend? Because even myself, I've never joined the class. I missed it. I don't know why he didn't end up doing new ones. Maybe because it's just you have to bring spoons, is my guess. But what is the process for that?
You have to be in tune for sure, which is something that, in this space, that's one of the main foundations that we practice on.
So first, let's start off with like, do you do a meditation?
Yes. So I remember doing a meditation first to set the groundwork, or at least lay out the foundation for the exercise. And then from what I remember, because again, I've only done the class once, it was we would focus our energy on the actual spoon, and instead of like, what we're probably more familiar with is where you hold the spoon like this, and the head of the spoon would bend over. It's not like that at all. What we did is that we like held it like at a horizontal, and I remember having my fingers just like, it felt like I was like stretching it out, which in a way stretched out its energy, and then naturally there's no force. Naturally, once you're in tune, the spoon would just naturally bend. And from there, that's when I successfully completed my first bending exercise. So when I saw that spoon that you saw on my wall, I was like, okay, I think I could do it. So I took the spoon, did the same practice, same approach that I did with the other one, and I was very grateful to say that I was the only one that able to bend it. And
So
I had to have kept it just as a
okay, so you
reminder.
explained how you do it, but why is this important for psychic work? Like what did Charles say this was going to teach you? How is this relevant to psychic work?
So I would say that it teaches you to trust your instincts. It also teaches you energy work as well. Um, from what I remember, gosh, I mean, I did this class over 10 years ago at this point. Um, I distinctly remember to focus on the energy around the spoon instead of the spoon itself. And then using that energy to bend the device.
This is funny where the cat's just going to be purring on the podcast.
I know. For those of you who love cats, our little cat just ran away.
Yep.
She has to be the center of attention.
She does. Okay, so spoon bending. So we talked about your near-death experience. We talked about your psychic work, how you got into the development stuff and the spoon bending. And so one of the things, now that like people have gotten to know you a little bit more about like how you got into all of this, I kind of want to just segue into like just the community aspect of psychic medium work, because I feel like I don't get to meet a lot of people that are married with another psychic medium or to another psychic medium. And I know people have asked me what it's like, but I guess my question for you is what is it like, or do you notice a difference between being married or having a relationship with someone that is a psychic medium versus a non-psychic medium? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it helps a lot to have a partner on the same brainwave as you, because there have been times when, you and I have done readings together, and I feel like a way more effective reader when I'm in your energy, because I feel like you and I elevate each other to enhance our abilities. So, and I feel, and I have met some couples in the past where, I'll give you an example. There was one person I knew that was very much into the space, but his partner, would judge him, ridicule him on, exploring the spiritual side of things. And as a result, the relationship didn't last as long as he wanted to. So I think it goes hand in hand to have a partner to be on the same brainwave as you. And if there's situations where it's not there, but you believe it could, just have that open mindedness, because you never know what you will learn in this process. Because I've learned a lot from you, and you've supported me more times than I can keep track of, and I feel like I am a better reader because of what you've done for me.
Oh, okay, love. Stop.
It's true.
Well, thank you for that. So I guess it's interesting because I've been asked that, and I guess I'll share mine here. So recently I was on Amber's podcast. I'll plug it in the description, but she had asked me, what is that like? Because I know that she said on her podcast that she has been historically, the people that she's dated are more skeptical. They don't really believe in this stuff. I mean, they're respectful about it, but and I know you kind of dabbled into like when relationships go south because one person isn't respectful over that belief system. Have you ever, but I want to kind of dive a little bit more about your experience. Have you ever dated somebody that wasn't really as nice about it? Because
Um there was a partner I was involved with that was more on the logical side than on the spiritual side. And by all means, like, there's nothing wrong with being logical by any means. I mean, it's needed in society, but I feel like this individual was not open at all to the spiritual side, but I kept I don't know how to say this without sounding rude, but
I mean, it doesn't even matter. You guys broke up. I don't mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like
I feel like I made them question everything they believe the more I kept reading them.
okay.
And I would get a hint. It's kind of like,
Okay, this is Stephanie from the future. So this got cut off. So I'm going to elaborate. Carl talked about how he dated this girl and he like did this whole reading for her and even did a whole thing with astrology and he like wowed her with that reading, but it got cut off. So anyways, I just wanted to add that note here. We're going to go back into the podcast now into friendships. So basically, it's interesting that you say that because have you ever had friends, though, that have ever made you feel like you're only good for your intuition? I'll give you an example. So when I did the psychic development stuff, I also did a certification with a spiritualist church. And I think the mentor at the time, great teacher. I can't say enough great things about the ability aspect because I think she really helped launched like my ability and expedite it a little bit better by like some of the methods that she did. But I think also she was dealing with some stuff that I feel like she really needed to do some shadow work back then.
mm,
And I'm not saying you need to be a messiah to be a reader, but I think there are some people that were I'm a big proponent of like the energy you put into a project is you're going to attract those people too, which is so important. Why you need to do some healing and shadow work. And like, I mean, we're always growing as people, but Charles did a really amazing job at like the energy he brought into the circle was amazing. And we did know somebody at one point that really didn't I love this person, but I felt like they didn't believe in our vision with the psychic development to even making commentary about the prices and even like, um, you know, saying, well, what if you bring in the wrong people? And to this day, we've done this for a year and we've never brought the wrong people and we stood by what we said we were going to do.
I feel like the quote unquote difficult people that we might have interacted with were those that were just like a first timer, one and done, and that was it.
There were a few, but not very much.
It's like, honestly, it was probably like two,
Right.
but we've never seen them again.
Right.
And maybe it was just a time where they just wanted to come and check it out, and that's totally fine.
Right.
But as far as like anything else, I mean, we've had people tell us that the classes are like an extension of their therapy.
Yeah.
And they're using the tools that we've been sharing with everyone in their day-to-day life. And nothing is even more empowering than having a follow-up feedback to say, hey, the message you gave me a few months ago was actually spot on and it actually came to light.
Well, and everyone that has attended these circles, are amazing. Like I love the community. I love the people that show up
Yeah.
and I don't regret it. But going back to my question though, have you ever been friends with anybody that you felt like they only want to be your friend because of your abilities?
Not to that extent. I feel because I kind of kept this to myself for a while.
Yeah.
Because in my journey, I wanted to use my development as as my own personal journey. And then when I would talk about it to my friends, they would either shut me down and say, "Nope, don't believe in that, don't want to talk about it, move on." And
Yeah.
then of course a friendship would be at risk for that. So it's like, okay, well, I am still firm in what I believe in. I will respect your boundaries, so I won't bring it up. But
Well, but then it also shows that you can't be 100% yourself and feel comfortable.
of
So they're like a
course,
certain level. Okay, I'm a big proponent. I don't know if anyone's like this, but I'm a big proponent of friendship tiers.
yeah.
You have your acquaintance, you have your friends that you'll invite, like the friends that you'll invite for like if you're doing large social gatherings. You have your friends that you will maybe do a couple things with.
Yeah.
You'll have your friends that are your good best friends.
And then you have your friends that are your psychic friends.
Yes, but I like to
Yeah.
clump. Yeah, you're right though. But like I think there's also the friends, like I said, the social friends. There's certain social gatherings that they'll be invited to, and I think there's also friends that like. I feel like there's that category, the large setting people. Those are the friends that unfortunately you can't let them in on all facets of your life.
Well, back to my personal development, there were times where I wanted to like vent out what I was feeling because like everyone else, when you are going in this journey, you can't comprehend what you're feeling, what you're interpreting, because psychic mediumship is messages that don't make sense.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling and want to share. Nothing is more demoralizing than having your friends or what are in your friend circle just shut you down right on the spot. Because I do remember I was trying to vent about, what I was feeling, and either they were maybe a little too religious or it just wasn't in their belief system. But I do remember sitting there, and it was an awkward moment where they just said, "I don't believe in this at all." And then, I would even try to bring up astrology to like try to make it more relatable in that sense. And they would even go one step further. Nope, don't even believe in that either. And
Was it someone we know?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um, and it sucks because I wasn't the only one in the room. There was two of my friends at the time, just, they both were on the same page. And that was
Oh,
when,
like siding with the other person.
yes.
Okay.
And it was kind of one of those things. It's like, well, I value our friendship. They've respected, my boundaries, my beliefs. And it seems like the conversation I was trying to have with them. And it was more of the lines of like, I had this feeling of X, Y, and Z. And I feel like I've had this message of some kind that I can't quite understand. Like that was kind of like my talk track, just to give you an example.
Okay.
And I just at that point it's like, okay, they're still my friends, but this is not the place to have this conversation with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think for me, it was a little bit different because I think when I decided that I wanted to dive into psychic work and I wanted to be more spiritual and dive into more metaphysical things, the friends that I had were either like on the atheist, skeptical side of things. And I didn't mean to intentionally stop hanging out with them, but it just did because I
Mm,
think that like naturally I was gravitating towards the people in these workshops and classes, and including you, where it was like I realized that this is what I wanted my life to be filled with, was the people that were going to understand that.
mm,
And if the people that were like, are skeptical like still want to be around that, sure, but I to your point, I think without even saying much, those friends and myself just knew we were going in different paths. So
sure.
it's interesting that you said that because
Hmm.
on my end of the world, I had people that I knew for a fact they were just using me because I was a psychic, and they only wanted to talk to me for that. It was never to hang out just to hang out.
Yeah. I'm sure that was I'm sure that was demoralizing.
It was. And I think, and I tried to repair one of the relationships with this person, one of the people, and didn't, it wasn't. So, and that's fine,
I get it.
yeah, you can't be for everybody. So you, as a reader, do you ever wow yourself or
Um,
surprise yourself?
More often than not in the classes, yes, because I would have when we have a full class of like 15 people, 10 to 15 people, I would just sit there after meditation and look at every single person in the room and feel like, hey, I know all these people are going through stuff in their lives and they chose to come to our circle for however long that experience is going to be. They took that time out of their day. How can I give something back to them for their time? So, I would ask my guides, like, is there anything I can tell them? And what would wow me is I would then start feeling the messages and
Mhm.
even seeing the messages. And when I would deliver those messages to them, they would always give me the feedback of like, yeah, that was spot on. So I think it's more of the confidence side of things where it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a while, but there's just it all. I guess it never ceases to amaze me when I do give that message and they say, yeah, that was great, or hey, it came true later on. That's where I always feel wowed.
Yeah, because I think I've noticed that people who don't do this work, they think that we're not surprised by what's even coming out of our own mouths.
Yeah,
And that's how you know that this is real, this is authentic, because it's not for us to know the message until it's time to give the message. You don't think about it, you just say it.
I remember there was one um, participant that came to our class. And I think sometime later, they asked the question, hey, can you recall the message you gave me? Because I'm trying to make sure I'm journaling this in. And I remember I struggled with it because I was like, wow, that was so long ago. I don't remember the
Yeah.
readings. And I asked myself, why don't I remember the readings? But it's like, these messages are not for me to hold. Once I give you the message, it's gone. That message is for you to carry on and for me to let go.
Yeah.
And
I recently went to an event and someone was bringing up that there is, and I've never heard of this, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. They were saying that there is this weird, like, separation and competition between like mediums on television, but with men. So some people, there's like a community, allegedly, I'm gonna say allegedly because I don't know if this is what this person told me. Allegedly, there's like the gay men who are represented on the media. It's mostly that, and there's just not enough representation for straight men who are mediums.
yeah, I feel like I've observed the exact same thing. Um, because let's be honest, the space is predominantly women, and then within that large demographic, there's a very small demographic of men, and most of that group would be gay men. And straight men, it's very, very, very little. So I feel like what I would encourage on that is diving into this space. There's a famous quote that I always cling to. Effective leadership is an understanding of who you are. And going through this personal journey often requires you to dive deeper into who you are as a person because straight, gay, however, whatever your identity is, the fact of the matter is that you have the gift. It is a muscle you gift
Yeah.
ability. It's just something you would just develop over time. And with that would may require you to let your walls down a little bit. Because for me, I struggled a great deal in getting in touch with this side of me. I was always closed off. I always felt like I had layers of I like barriers just surrounding me and trying to like better understand what I was capable of. And I think a big majority of it was doubt.
Right.
The
Well,
moment when I started to just do it and practice, the more I realized, oh, this is real.
yeah.
I can do it. And I feel like at that point, if you can put yourself in that same position, the same result would happen.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like we know a lot of our great friends who are in the space are gay men.
Yeah,
So in the psychic circles, you're always happy to see men join.
I am. I am. I feel like in my experience, there's a lot of men that are not open to this and are not willing to try. So when I do see men show up to these classes, I do get excited because they're here to help empower themselves. And if there's anything I can do to help them along that journey, then I'm all in.
Right. That's amazing. So I feel like we touched on a lot of base, and I feel like this episode is just so amazing for, couples who are in the space, for men who are in the space, straight men who are in the space, because I feel like there's not enough conversations with that. And it was so interesting when that happened at that event. So but I've never heard like there's like a rivalry or anything like that. But I just more
I've
of just,
never felt any
no,
rivalries at all. Like if I'm the one straight man in the room and all the associates in there are all gay men, more power to you. Like
right.
I will
Yeah.
uplift you no differently than I would uplift anyone else.
Right.
And and I'll be honest, I've learned a lot from members of the LGBT plus community. Um, and I'm entirely eternally grateful for that. So as far as a rivalry is concerned, I would never look at such things like that.
Yeah, absolutely not. Okay. So anyway, but that was a good discussion. I feel like obviously I'm going to have you on for more, but I think that wraps up. I feel like we're at a good place with this episode. I feel like if you guys want more questions around near death, me and Carl can do like an actual dedicated episode on that, and he can elaborate on his stories. We can, you know, really dive into that because I feel like we could do a whole episode of near death experiences. There's so many stories on Reddit, online, and it's a very interesting community I've found. So anyway, but we'll wrap it up here. So that's all. Is there anything else you want people to know?
Just thank you for having me on the show, and thanks for listening and for being part of the community.
All right, cool. All right, guys. So remember, stay
Stay
strange.
strange.
Okay.